Young doctor changed Bandage for female millionaire in a coma. Shockingly, she woke up and something miraculous happened. Love found them. The steady hum of machines filled the echo at St. Augustine's, their rhythmic beeping the only sign of life in the sterile room. Olivia Nguyen lay motionless, her dark hair a stark contrast against the crisp white sheets. For 6 months, the heiress had been trapped in a coma, the mystery of her accident lingering like a shadow. Around her, nurses moved with routine precision, except for Dr. Aiden Lee. Aiden stood at her bedside, his jaw clenched. His white coat hung loosely over a wrinkled shirt, evidence of too many sleepless nights. His dark eyes flickered over the bandages wrapped around Olivia's chest, yellowed and stiff from neglect. His fingers hovered over them, tension crackling in the air. "Dr. Lee, stop." Margaret, the head nurse, loomed beside him, her voice sharp. "You can't just change her bandages like that. There's a protocol." Aiden turned to her, eyes blazing. "Protocol?" His voice was quiet but filled with defiance. "She's been lying here for 6 months with these wrapped too tight, restricting her breathing." "I don't care about protocol. I care about saving her." Margaret's lips pressed into a thin line. She's Olivia Nguyen, billionaire public figure. One wrong move and her family. "Her family isn't here." Aiden cut in, his patience snapping. He gestured to the bandages. "But I am. And I'm not letting this continue." Before she could stop him, he grabbed sterile scissors and carefully cut through the old fabric. As the bandages peeled away, faint red indentations lined Olivia's pale skin. Aiden's breath caught. She had been suffocating under hospital bureaucracy. Margaret exhaled sharply. "You're risking your career." "Then let them fire me," Aiden muttered. His hands moved with practiced precision, replacing the old bandages with fresh ones, ensuring they were snug but not constricting. His fingertips brushed her skin briefly, a fleeting moment of warmth against cold stillness. The room settled into silence, the tension thick between them. Margaret watched him work, her protests fading. Aiden stepped back, wiping his hands on his coat, his gaze fixed on Olivia's face. Then, the heart monitor stuttered. A single beep stretched into another. Faster. Stronger. Aiden's breath hitched. Margaret gasped, her clipboard slipping from her grasp. The numbers climbed. 60, 65, 70. Aiden leaned closer, pulse racing. A faint hitch in Olivia's chest. Her lips parted slightly. A sign. A flicker of life. His voice was barely above a whisper. What the hell? For the first time in 6 months, Olivia Nguyen was changing, and Aiden had just shattered the silence that held her captive. The AQ glowed a dim blue at night, machines humming like restless ghosts. Aiden sat in the corner, hunched over a tablet, shadows etching his tired face. Olivia's heart monitor had calmed after that startling spike, but it lingered in his mind, her pulse surging as if she'd felt him. It didn't add up. He swiped through her medical file, 6 months of scans and notes. Olivia Nguyen, 32, crashed her Mercedes on a rainy highway, no witnesses, just a wreck and a coma. CT scans showed a mild concussion, minor bruising, no major damage. Yet she stayed silent. A neurologist's note read, persistent vegetative state, cause unclear. Unclear wasn't enough for Aiden. Rubbing his eyes, he replayed the moment. He'd changed her bandages, eased her breathing. Had that triggered it? No, something deeper gnawed at him. Suspicion tightened his chest. What if her coma wasn't natural? What if someone wanted her this way? Pacing the room, his sneakers squeaked on the floor. Olivia lay still, ventilator hissing, her face sharp and serene, a tech titan who'd conquered Wall Street and Silicon Valley. She had enemies, family, rivals, anyone eyeing her empire. Could they have silenced her? The idea struck hard. Drugs, subtle and sinister, keeping her trapped. Hospitals hid power plays for the rich. Aiden's pulse raced. If true, he couldn't trust anyone here. He'd investigate alone. He slipped into the dark hallway, heading to the supply room. The door creaked open, shelves glinting with vials, morphine, saline, nothing odd. Then, behind some gauze, he found it. An unmarked vial, half full of clear liquid, no label. His breath hitched. This wasn't standard. Pocketing it, heart pounding, he returned to his office and called Jake, a lab tech friend. "Aiden? It's 2 a.m., Jake groaned. "Analyze this for me," Aiden whispered. "Off the books. Tomorrow?" Jake agreed, grumbling. By morning, Aiden met him at a dingy coffee shop, handing over the vial. Jake swirled it. "No label. Where'd you get this?" "Just test it." Fast, Aiden said. 2 days later, Jake called. Aiden sat in the cafeteria, coffee cooling. Low dose anesthetic, Jake said. Keep someone under without knocking them out. What's this about? Aiden's stomach sank. Thanks, Jake. He hung up, mind spinning. A sedative perfect for quiet sabotage. Someone, family, a rival, had done this. He needed more proof, but it was a start. That night, back in the ICU's blue haze, Olivia lay unchanged, her face hauntingly blank. Aiden sat close, the vial heavy in his pocket. He leaned in, whispering, I'll uncover the truth, whether you can hear me or not. His voice was rough with resolve. He didn't know who or why, but he'd fight for her. The monitor beeped steadily, yet that earlier spike rang in his head like a battle cry. Rain battered the hospital windows, a steady roar drowning the ICU's hum. Lightning streaked through the blinds, throwing shadows across the room where Aiden sat, clipboard in hand. Past midnight, the storm churned Manhattan into chaos outside St. Augustine's. He'd been on shift 16 hours, exhaustion tugging at him, but Olivia Nguyen kept him awake. Her chart lay open, numbers, notes, but his gaze drifted to her still form. She was pale, her dark hair spilling over the pillow, the ventilator hissing air into her lungs, unbroken for 6 months. Aiden stood, stretching, and grabbed his stethoscope. Routine vitals check, same as always. He crossed the room, the storm rumbling faintly, and pressed the stethoscope to her chest, pulse 62, oxygen steady. Normal. He adjusted her blanket, then lightning flashed, lighting her face. Her eyelids twitched. Aiden froze, breath held. A faint flutter. Imagination. He leaned closer, waiting. Nothing. Wishful thinking, he muttered. But as he straightened, her lashes parted. Dark eyes blinked up, hazy but alive. His heart thudded, stethoscope clattering to the floor. Olivia? He whispered. Her gaze locked onto his, wide, searching. Hands shaking, he flicked a penlight across her pupils. They constricted, slow but real. He tapped her knee. Her leg jerked faintly. She was awake, aware after 6 months. Holy, he stopped, voice quaking. He paced, then returned, her eyes following, intense despite confusion. She couldn't speak, the tube silencing her, but her look, fear, relief, something deeper, shook him. This is a miracle, he half laughed, mind racing. The bandage is the sedative, had he broken through? Or pure chance? Either way, she was back. Then it hit, if someone drugged her, they'd act if they knew. His jaw tightened. No telling Margaret, no one yet. He'd protect her, find the culprit. Their secret. "K." He pulled a chair close, eyes level. "Hey," he said, calming his voice. "You're safe. I'm Aiden, Dr. Lee. Hear me?" One blink, yes, he smiled faintly. "Don't move much, okay? You've been out a while." Another slow blink, her gaze steady. He wet her lips with a swab, her eyes softening, thanks. He propped her pillows, hands firm despite adrenaline. "I've been here for you," he said, settling in. "Got some stories." He talked, storm, spilled coffee, a stray dog, simple things, her eyes fixed on him. He taught her signals, 1 blink yes, 2 no. Pain, 2 blinks. Tired. 1. A fragile rhythm grew. The storm raged as he rambled, med school, his stubbornness, a botched suture. Her lips twitched, a hint of a smile, stopping him. She understood. He rested his fingers on hers. "You're tough," he said. "We'll get through." Her fingers curled weakly, grasping his, a frail but fierce trust. His breath caught, throat tight. He sat, her hand in his, rain pounding, the world shifting. She was awake, and so was he. The hospital corridors buzzed with midday chaos, trays clattering, phones ringing, voices overlapping in a cacophony of urgency. Aiden barely noticed, his focus razor-sharp as he strode toward the admin wing, a manila folder tucked under his arm. The past week had been a blur of late nights and furtive searches, piecing together the puzzle of Olivia's coma. Her awakening had lit a fire in him, and now, every clue pointed to one name, Daniel Nguyen. Olivia's younger brother was a slick, polished figure in his late 20s, all tailored suits and calculated smiles. As her only sibling, he'd stepped into the spotlight, after her accident, managing her sprawling tech empire with an ease that raised Aiden's hackles. The more he dug, the uglier it got. Daniel had been at the hospital too often, visits logged at odd hours, always alone. Then there was the vial, the sedative Aiden had found. It wasn't a stretch to connect the dots. Daniel had the motive, the means and bold ambition to keep his sister out of the picture. Aiden's breakthrough came that morning. He'd sweet-talked a security guard into letting him review the IQ footage from months back. Grainy but damning, the video showed Daniel in a darkened hallway, slipping a small vial to a nervous-looking nurse, Jenny, a quiet woman who'd been on Olivia's rotation. Aiden's pulse had raced as he watched the exchange, Daniel's hand clapping Jenny's shoulder like a deal sealed. Hours later, he'd cornered her in the break room, recorder hidden in his pocket. "I didn't want to," Jenny had stammered, her eyes darting. "He said it was just to help her rest, that she'd wake up soon. Then he gave me $5,000 to keep quiet." Her voice cracked. "I didn't know it'd go on this long." That confession paired with the footage was gold. Aiden had printed stills from the video, time-stamped and clear, and stuffed them into the folder now burning against his side. Daniel wasn't just negligent, he was a predator, drugging his own sister to steal her life's work. Aiden's fists clenched as he reached the executive lounge, where Daniel was meeting with hospital brass. This ended today. He pushed through the glass doors, the room falling silent as heads turned. Daniel lounged at the head of a polished table, his suit pristine, a coffee cup in hand. He glanced up, his smirk faltering for a split second as he registered Aiden's storming approach. "Dr. Lee," Daniel drawled, setting the cup down. "To what do I owe the interruption?" Aiden slammed the folder onto the table, papers spilling out, stills of the footage, Jenny's transcribed confession. "This," he said, his voice low and furious. "You've been poisoning her, Daniel, keeping her in that coma so you could play king." The room erupted in murmurs, suits shifting uncomfortably. Daniel's eyes narrowed, but his smile held, sharp as a blade. "That's a bold accusation, Doctor. Got proof, or are you just fishing for attention?" Aiden tapped the photos, his finger jabbing at Daniel's grainy image. "Security footage. You handing off the vial. And your nurse," she talked. $5,000 to dope Olivia up, keep her quiet." "Sound familiar?" Daniel leaned back, crossing his arms, unruffled. "Creative storytelling. But you're out of your depth. One call to the board, and your career's ash. You're nothing here." Aiden stepped closer, his voice a growl. "Try it. I've got copies of everything, tapes, files, witnesses. You're done. I'll protect her, no matter what you throw at me." Daniel's smirk vanished, his face hardening. He rose, towering over Aiden, his voice dropping to a hiss. "You're a dead man walking, Lee. She's my sister, my business. You think you can touch me?" "I already have," Aiden shot back, unflinching. "The cops get this next if you don't back off. Your move." A tense silence stretched, the room holding its breath. Daniel's jaw twitched, his eyes flicking to the papers, then back to Aiden. Finally, he sneered, grabbing his coat. "Enjoy your little crusade," he said, brushing past. "It won't last." The door slammed behind him, leaving Aiden standing amid the stunned onlookers. He exhaled, adrenaline still surging, and gathered the scattered papers. The confrontation had been a gamble, he'd shown his hand, made an enemy, but it was worth it. Daniel knew he was exposed, and that gave Olivia a fighting chance. Aiden left the lounge, his steps quickening as he headed back to the IQ, the folder now a weapon in his grip. The storm from days ago had cleared, sunlight streaming through the windows as he entered Olivia's room. She lay there, eyes closed, her breathing steady through the ventilator. Aiden pulled the chair close, the folder resting on his lap. He leaned in, his voice soft but ironclad. "I won't let them hurt you anymore," he said, his hand brushing hers. Her fingers didn't move, but he felt her presence, fragile yet fierce, fueling his resolve. Daniel might fight back, but Aiden was ready. This was war now, and he'd win it for her. The EQ felt less like a prison now, its sterile walls softened by the golden haze of late afternoon sun spilling through the blinds. Olivia Nyan's bed was angled upright, the ventilator gone, replaced by a nasal cannula whispering oxygen into her lungs. She'd been awake for a week, her recovery a slow crawl from the edge of oblivion. Aiden Lee stood by her side, a clipboard in hand, but his focus wasn't on the numbers, it was on her. Her dark eyes, once clouded, now glinted with a fragile clarity, and her voice, though raspy and faint, had begun to break the silence. "Water," she croaked, her throat raw from disuse. Aiden set the clipboard down and grabbed a cup from the tray, guiding the straw to her lips. She sipped, wincing slightly, then nodded a weak thanks. He smiled, small but genuine. "You're getting stronger," he said, settling into the chair beside her. Few more days and you'll be bossing me around." Her lips twitched, a ghost of a smile. "Already am," she managed, each word a labored breath. Aiden chuckled, the sound easing the room's tension. She'd started speaking 2 days ago, just fragments at first, single syllables squeezed out between coughs. Now she could string sentences together, and every word felt like a victory. He'd kept her awakening quiet, feeding the staff vague updates about stable vitals, while he guarded her from prying eyes. Daniel's threat still loomed, but Aiden pushed it aside, focusing on Olivia. She needed him now, not as a doctor, but as something more. He pulled out a small towel and dabbed her forehead, her skin cool but clammy from the effort of waking. "Tell me," she rasped, her gaze locking onto his. "Why you?" Aiden paused, the towel hovering. "Why me what?" "Why fight for me?" He set the towel down, leaning forward, elbows on his knees. "Because you're worth it," he said simply. "Someone tried to bury you, Olivia. I couldn't let them win." Her eyes glistened, a flicker of something raw passing through them. She turned her head slightly, staring at the ceiling, her breath hitching. "No one ever," she stopped, swallowing hard. "My life empty. Family liars. I didn't want to wake." Aiden's chest tightened. He'd suspected as much. Her coma wasn't just drugs, but a surrender. "What changed?" he asked, his voice soft. She looked back at him, her gaze piercing despite its weakness. "You." The word hung there, heavy and unguarded. Aiden held her stare, feeling the weight of it settle into him. He'd been her anchor, pulling her back when she'd let go. Now, she was reaching for him, and he couldn't look away. Days blurred into a routine of recovery. Aiden guided her through physical therapy, his hand steadying her trembling arms as she gripped parallel bars. Her first steps were shaky, her legs buckling under months of atrophy, but he caught her every time, his voice a constant murmur of encouragement. "One more, you've got this." She'd grit her teeth and push, sweat beading on her brow, and he'd beam when she made it, pride lighting his tired eyes. In the evenings he stayed late, long after his shift ended. The nurses stopped questioning it, leaving them alone in the dim room. He'd bring a deck of cards or a book, anything to keep her mind sharp, but mostly they talked. He told her about growing up in Queens, the scholarship that got him through med school, the time he'd crashed his bike into a dumpster and laughed it off. She listened, her raspy chuckles growing stronger, and slowly she opened up too. "My father controlled everything," she said one night, her voice clearer now, though still rough. "Mother died young. Daniel, he was jealous, wanted it all. I built the company, alone. No one cared." Aiden leaned closer, his hand resting near hers on the bed. "I care," he said, firm but quiet. "You're not alone anymore." Her eyes softened, a tear slipping down her cheek. She wiped it away, embarrassed, but he caught her hand gently, holding it until she relaxed. Their talks deepened, weaving a thread between them, his stubborn hope, her buried strength. He'd catch her watching him sometimes, a look he couldn't name, and his pulse would quicken, unbidden. One evening the room glowed with the soft amber of dusk, the city's hum a distant lullaby. Aiden sat cross-legged on the chair, recounting a disastrous attempt at cooking for his med school roommates. Olivia laughed, a real, throaty sound, and he grinned, savoring it. She shifted, wincing as she adjusted herself, and he moved to help, propping her pillows. "You're good at this," she said, her voice a whisper now, but steady. "At what? Bad cooking stories?" "No," she paused, her eyes locking onto his. "Making me feel alive." Aiden stilled, his hands lingering on the pillow. The air thickened, charged with something new. She reached out, her fingers brushing his, tentative but deliberate. "You're the reason I wanted to live again," she rasped, her voice breaking with emotion. His heart slammed against his ribs, a rush of warmth flooding him. He couldn't speak, couldn't move, caught in the raw honesty of her words. She'd bared herself, and he felt it. The pull, the ache he'd ignored for weeks. He didn't pull away. Instead, he slid his hand over hers, lacing their fingers together, his thumb tracing her knuckles. "Olivia," he started, but the words failed him. She leaned forward, just a fraction, and he met her halfway. In a quiet, tender surge, he pulled her into his arms, careful of her frailty but firm in his hold. She melted against him, her head resting on his shoulder, her breath warm against his neck. He buried his face in her hair, the scent of hospital soap mingling with something uniquely her. They stayed like that, wrapped in silence, the world fading to nothing but the beat of their hearts. It was no longer just patient and doctor, protector and protected. It was them, together, and it was unmistakably love. The courthouse steps gleamed under the harsh glare of camera flashes, a swarm of reporters buzzing like flies as Olivia Nguyen descended, her stride steady despite the cane in her hand. 3 weeks out of the ICU, she was a shadow of her former self, thinner, paler, but her eyes burned with a fire Aiden had come to know well. Beside her, he kept pace, his jaw set, the manila folder of evidence, now a legal weapon in the hands of their attorney, Rachel Kim. Today they'd take Daniel down, brick by brick. Inside, the courtroom was a battlefield of polished wood and whispered tension. Olivia sat at the plaintiff's table, her dark suit crisp, her gaze fixed on her brother across the aisle. Daniel lounged in his chair, smirking, his lawyer a slick wall of confidence beside him. Aiden took the seat behind Olivia, his hands clenched, every nerve taut. Rachel stood, her voice cutting through the room as she presented the case: attempted murder, fraud, a conspiracy to steal Olivia's empire. The security footage played on a screen, Daniel's shadowy figure unmistakable as he handed the vial to Jenny. The nurse's recorded confession followed, her voice trembling but clear. Daniel's smirk faltered as the evidence piled up, his lawyer scrambling to object. The judge, a stern woman with silver hair, leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. Rachel called Olivia to the stand, and she rose, her cane tapping the floor. Her testimony was raw: 6 months lost, her brother's betrayal, the drugs that chained her to silence. The room hung on her every word, Aiden's chest swelling with pride. When she finished, Daniel's lawyer tried to twist it, claiming stress, a misunderstanding, but the judge wasn't buying it. The gavel slammed. "Recess until tomorrow," she said, and Daniel's glare shot to Aiden venomous. Outside, chaos erupted. Aiden shielded Olivia from the press, guiding her to a waiting car, but he felt the weight of eyes on them. Daniel's eyes. They'd won the day, but it wasn't over. That night, Rachel called with news. The prosecution was pushing for jail time. Olivia smiled, a rare, fierce thing, and Aiden squeezed her hand. "He's finished," she said, and he nodded, believing it. The next morning, the trial resumed, and the verdict came fast: guilty. Daniel's face twisted as cuffs snapped onto his wrists, his threats drowned by the courtroom's murmur. Olivia exhaled, leaning into Aiden, her relief palpable. But as they left the courthouse, the air shifted: too quiet, too quiet, too still. Aiden's instincts flared. He pulled Olivia closer, scanning the crowd, and then he saw it, a hulking figure in a hoodie, barreling through the reporters straight for them. "Olivia, down!" Aiden shouted, shoving her behind him. The thug swung a fist, but Aiden ducked, adrenaline surging. The man lunged again, a glint of metal in his hand, a knife. Aiden threw himself forward, tackling the attacker, but pain seared his arm as the blade grazed him. He grunted, pinning the thug's wrist until security swarmed in, hauling the man away. Olivia's scream cut through the chaos, her hands grabbing Aiden as he staggered back, blood soaking his sleeve. "Aiden," she cried, her voice breaking. He forced a grin, clutching his arm. "I'm fine, just a scratch." But she wasn't listening, her fingers trembling as she pressed her scarf against the wound, her face pale with fear. The crowd parted, paramedics rushing in, and soon they were in an ambulance, Olivia refusing to leave his side. Hours later, the story broke on national TV. Olivia sat in a studio, her cane resting against the chair, her voice steady as she faced the cameras. "My brother tried to kill me," she said, unflinching. "He drugged me, stole my company, sent someone to finish it today. But I'm here because of one man, Dr. Aiden Lee. He saved me, and I'm taking back what's mine." The anchor nodded, stunned, as Olivia laid out the truth: her recovery, Daniel's plot, Aiden's courage. By morning, her company's board had reinstated her, public support flooding in. That night, Aiden lay in a hospital bed at St. Augustine's, his arm bandaged, a dull ache pulsing beneath the gauze. The door creaked open, and Olivia slipped in, her suit swapped for a sweater, her hair loose. She carried a tray, water, a cloth, a small first aid kit. "Your turn," she said, her voice soft but firm, setting it down. He raised an eyebrow. "I'm the patient now?" "Exactly." She sat beside him, dipping the cloth in water and gently wiping the sweat from his brow. Her touch was careful, reverent, mirroring the way he'd cared for her weeks ago. "You scared me today," she murmured, her eyes meeting his, glistening. "I can't lose you." Aiden caught her hand, holding it against his cheek. "You won't," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "I'd take 100 hits for you." She leaned in, resting her forehead against his, her breath warm on his skin. The room faded, leaving just them, her tending his wound, him shielding her heart, their roles reversed in a quiet, unbreakable bond. The penthouse gleamed with floor-to-ceiling windows, Manhattan skyline sprawling beyond the glass, like a glittering promise. Olivia Nguyen stood by the edge, her silhouette sharp in a tailored blazer, fully recovered now, 3 months since the trial, her strength back in every step. Aiden Lee leaned against the kitchen counter, a beer in hand, watching her with a quiet ache. She'd reclaimed her empire, her name splashed across headlines, but the headlines had shifted lately, and not in their favor. The tabloids were relentless. Millionaire hire slumming it with Dr. Boyfriend is Olivia Nguyen buying loyalty photos of them, leaving the hospital grabbing coffee, were plastered everywhere, captions dripping with insinuation. She was the titan, he was the nobody, and the world couldn't stop talking about it. Aiden scrolled through his phone that morning, the comments cutting deeper than he'd admit. She's just using him for the story he's in. Over his head doubt crept in, a slow poison he couldn't shake. Olivia turned, catching his gaze. "You're quiet tonight," she said, crossing the room, her voice smooth but probing. She'd ditched the cane weeks ago, her stride confident again, but her eyes softened when they landed on him. He set the beer down, forcing a smile. "Just tired. Long shift." It wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the truth either. She tilted her head, unconvinced, and sat beside him on the couch, her knee brushing his. "Aiden, talk to me." He exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "It's nothing. Just the noise out there. People saying stuff about us." He met her eyes, hesitating. "They think you're slumming it with me. That I'm some charity case you're propping up." Her brow furrowed, a flash of anger crossing her face. "They're idiots. You know that." "Do I?" The words slipped out, sharper than he meant. "Olivia, you're you. Billionaire, genius, the whole world at your feet. I'm just a guy with a stethoscope and a rent-controlled apartment. Maybe they're right. Maybe I don't fit." She stared at him, stunned, then leaned closer, her voice firm. "You think I care about that? After everything?" He looked away, his throat tight. "I care. I don't want to drag you down. You deserve a life without my baggage, someone who matches you, not some tabloid punchline." His insecurity spilled out, raw and jagged, clashing with the love he felt pulsing beneath it. He stood pacing, the words tearing free. "Maybe we should step back. Let you breathe." Olivia's eyes widened, then hardened. She rose, grabbing his arm to stop him. "No," she said, her tone cutting through his spiral. "You don't get to decide that for me." "Olivia, listen to me," she snapped, pulling him to face her. "I was dead inside before you. Not the coma before that. Alone, betrayed, nothing real. You gave me back my life. And now you want to walk away because some hacks with keyboards think you're not enough." Her voice shook, fierce and pleading. "You're everything." Aiden's breath caught, her words sinking in, but the doubt lingered, a stubborn shadow. She saw it, and her jaw set. "Fine," she said, stepping back. "You want proof. Watch this." The next day she called a press conference. Aiden stood backstage, arms crossed, as Olivia faced a sea of microphones in a sleek downtown studio. The room buzzed, reporters, cameras, the weight of her name drawing them like moths. She wore a simple black dress, her presence commanding, and when she spoke, the chatter died. "There's been talk about my life," she began, her voice steady, ringing clear. "About Aiden Lee. Let me set it straight. He's not my doctor boyfriend or some pawn. He saved me, not with wealth, but with his heart. He fought for me when no one else did, risked everything to pull me out of hell. I'm here because of him, and I love him for it." She paused, her eyes finding Aiden's through the crowd. "So write what you want. We're not going anywhere." The room erupted, shouts, clicks, gasps, but Aiden barely heard it. Her words hit him like a tidal wave, washing away the noise in his head. She stepped off the stage, ignoring the chaos, and walked straight to him, her gaze unwavering. "Believe me now?" she asked, softer, a challenge in her smile. He pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her, the world fading to just them. "Yeah," he murmured into her hair, his voice thick. "I do." She pressed against him, her hands on his chest, and he felt the shift, doubt replaced by certainty. love louder than the critics. They left the studio hand in hand, the city's roar a distant hum. The backlash would fade, the gossip would tire, but they wouldn't. They'd committed, to each other, to a life above the noise, and nothing would break them now. The air carried the faint scent of spring, blossoming trees and fresh earth, as Aidan Lee stood under a simple wooden arch in a Brooklyn park, his hands clasped nervously in front of him. A year had passed since the press conference, and now, at 29, he wore a plain gray suit, no tie, his glasses slightly fogged from the breeze. Before him, Olivia Nyan walked down a makeshift aisle of wildflowers, her white dress flowing soft and unpretentious, a smile breaking across her face. At 33, she glowed, her dark hair loose, no trace of the heiress she'd once been, just a woman in love. The ceremony was small, intimate, 20 guests, mostly Aidan's med school friends, and a few loyal staff from St. Augustine's. No cameras, no fanfare, just the rustle of leaves and the officiant's gentle voice. They exchanged vows they'd written themselves, Aidan's voice catching as he promised to stand by her through storms and silence. Olivia steady as she swore to build a life not of wealth, but of us. When they kissed, the applause was soft, heartfelt, a quiet cheer for a love hard won. Afterward, they didn't jet off to some lavish honeymoon. Olivia had other plans. 2 weeks later, she sat in her penthouse office, signing papers that dissolved most of her fortune, billions funneled into charities for education, healthcare, women's shelters. The tabloids called it madness, she called it freedom. She kept enough to live comfortably, but the empire she'd built was no longer her cage. Aidan watched her sign the last document, his hand on her shoulder, pride swelling in his chest. "You sure about this?" he asked, half teasing. She looked up, grinning. Never been surer. They moved into a modest brownstone in Queens, trading skyscrapers for a backyard with a patchy lawn. But their real work began a month later, when they cut the ribbon on the Nyan Lee Clinic, a squat brick building in an underserved corner of the borough. Aidan had dreamed of it for years, a place where anyone could walk in, no insurance, no questions, just care. Olivia made it real, her business savvy turning his vision into concrete and stethoscopes. She handled the books, he handled the patients, and together, they turned a forgotten street into a lifeline. The clinic buzzed daily, kids with colds, elders with aches, families who'd never seen a doctor before. Aidan moved through exam rooms, his white coat swapped for a hoodie, his laugh echoing as he patched up scraped knees or listened to raspy lungs. Olivia sat at a desk out front, scheduling appointments, charming donors with her quiet fire, her old boardroom steel now bent toward kindness. They worked late, side by side, sharing takeout over paperwork, their rhythm seamless. One evening, as summer faded into fall, they stepped onto the clinic's small porch, the day's last patient gone. The sky blazed orange and pink, the sun dipping below the row houses, casting long shadows across the cracked sidewalk. Aidan leaned against the railing, his arm brushing Olivia's, a cup of coffee cooling in his hand. She stood beside him, her hair catching the light, a scarf loose around her neck. The city hummed faintly, cars, voices, life, but here it was just them. "Worth it?" he asked, glancing at her, his voice low. She turned, her eyes meeting his, warm and certain. Every second. She slid her hand into his, their fingers lacing together, calluses from his work rough against her softer skin. "We did this. Together." He squeezed her hand, a slow smile spreading. "Yeah, we did." They stood there, hand in hand, watching the sunset paint the world gold. The clinic behind them was more than brick. It was their promise, a testament to what they'd fought through. No coma, no betrayal, no gossip could touch them now. They'd shed the weight of wealth and doubt, built something real, something theirs. The horizon stretched wide, endless, and as the last light faded, Aidan pulled her close, her head resting against his chest. Love had carried them here, past every obstacle, and it would carry them forward, unbroken, into whatever came next. The sun dipped below the horizon, leaving a soft glow over the Nyan Lee Clinic's porch where Aidan and Olivia stood, their hands still entwined. The world they'd built wasn't just a place. It was a heartbeat, a testament to love's quiet power over chaos and greed. From a stormy night in the ICU to this golden dusk, their journey had woven a tale of courage, trust, and a bond that no force could shatter. As the stars began to prick the sky, they turned back inside, ready for tomorrow's patients, their love a light that would never fade. If Aidan and Olivia's story moved you, how a young doctor's defiance sparked a miracle, how a millionaire found her soul again in his care, then don't miss out on more tales like this. Subscribe to the Soul Stirring Stories channel, where every story pulls at your heartstrings and leaves you believing in the extraordinary. Hit that subscribe button now and join us for the next unforgettable journey.